Thanks, Jess. Thanks, everyone. This is Kirsten Green. I'm the Deputy Director here at the Department of Land Conservation and Development, and I also serve as the agency's tribal liaison at the Director's Delegation. We're pleased to welcome you to the final webinar in our series of 4 work sessions for local governments. And I just want to give deep thanks to League of Oregon Cities and the Association of Oregon Counties for hosting and helping us get the word out. I know Brandon is off tracking water issues today, but Alexandra, would you like to say just a little hello or a long hello, either way?
Yeah. Hi folks, Alexander Ring, she, her pronouns. I am the housing and land use lobbyist for the League of Oregon Cities. Not here today is my double, Brandon Persinger with Association of Oregon Counties. We're kind of the chief resources for local planners on the ground. If you have additional questions, comments, etc., that you want to make sure that we hear in addition to the department, shoot us both emails. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. Thanks, Alexandra. And also for being in a 3-hour Rules Advisory Committee meeting this morning on the continued update of the state's housing program. So thank you. All right, well, I'll dive in, figure out how to forward this slide. So this is my reminder to thank some of our presenters and our co-hosts, and also to just recognize that our commission liaison from the Land Conservation and Development Commission, Commissioner Thompson from Clatsop County, had to be out of the, not just state, but country right now. So is not able to be with us today, but she sends her blessings as usual. And really, she usually reminds us to be in learning and listening mode. So I'll just carry that forward. This really is a purpose of this meeting, is to hear how we can help. I'll give a general overview of kind of the history of the rules. We know that this is a significant change for local governments, and we ask for your collaboration. We know this is a very busy time for local governments in a constrained capacity environment with, for example, the housing rules under continued evolution, as we know that the way they were prior to the current framework were just not working for anybody, including people needing homes. So it's been a lot going on. The housing rulemaking, cities and counties are very busy with that, and we definitely, in the commission and staff, all acknowledge that. So thank you, everyone, for trying to stay in the boat, rowing together toward better futures. I just want to sort of introduce folks that might present today. For sure, Amanda Penton, the natural resource specialist. If you'd like to say hello, Amanda.
Oh, getting there.
You are here.
I am. I thought I was muted. So, hello everyone. I am Amanda Punton. I am the natural resource specialist for DLCD, and I've been working with Kirsten to draft rules that will accomplish the tasks that we hope to accomplish.
Oh, thank you. And Mr. Gordon Howard, please.
Hello, everyone. I'm the Community Services Division Manager, Gordon Howard, and working with Amanda and Kirsten, definitely in a junior role compared to the great work they're doing, but hopefully providing some welcome help to get these rules over the finish line.
Yeah, thank you, Gordon. No, we don't go anywhere without you. And then some folks, also where we don't go anywhere without, Matthew Hampton is here. He's our uh, rules coordinator for this project. And Matthew, would you like to say hello? Surprise.
Hello, surprise. Just kidding. Hi, my name is Matthew Hampton. I am the rules coordinator here at DLCD, and I have the privilege of working with this wonderful group. And I'll also be running the chat today. So keep your eyes peeled for some useful links coming later.
Good. Thanks, Matthew. Cool. There's a lot of luminaries. This has taken a lot of hands. There's definitely some regional representatives on the call today who will be helping with implementation. DLCD's regional representatives are among the most valuable resources. I hate to call a human being a resource, but most valuable experts in our agency. They've all served at the local level, so they've all been, precautioning us and trying to help us get these rules as easy to implement as possible for local governments. We'll talk a little bit about some of the the templates and guidance coming out there. I want to also thank community development director in Coos County, Jill Rolfe, who's been with us on the TAC for on the RAC for a couple of years now and has provided some examples of some precedent work in Coos County, and then also Dr. Kelly Housley Glover with Wasco County. Just thank you both for helping us connect too with the planning directors. Kelly, I appreciate it. There's never enough time to really workshop all this, so we've appreciated all those opportunities. So thank you both. Apologies if I've forgotten anyone that I should be introducing right now, but others, if you please share your name. If you would like to put your title, please do, your community in the chat, and I invite you to enter the thing that you like or do not like about fall. I have a lot of opinions about fall that I won't go into here, but I'm curious how other people feel. And I'll just spoiler, I'm always looking for uppers of why other people like fall. Kimberly, thank you. Hello, welcome.
Oh, I just wanted to note that the webinar chat's disabled, at least for me. So I can't introduce myself or
no.
say anything. So
Oh,
anyway,
no.
hi.
Hello. Okay, I'm not sure we can change that on the back end. That is so sorry, frustrating. It's my fault. I didn't ask Jess to turn that on. Sometimes we have it off for commission. But Kimberly, thank you. And Kimberly, thank you for being for your presidential work in City of Salem and being here as well. Anyone else? Yeah, please, Shayna.
It's on now.
It's on now. Okay, great. Oh, thank you. Good. And Katsari was probably trying to tell me the same thing. So please, things you love and hate about fall. Or any other season of the year if you'd like. But anyway, I'd love to hear from you a little bit in the chat. So the purpose today again is listening and learning. As I say, I'm intimidated. I'm sort of like impressed among some really senior planners here in the room. So we're very curious to hear your suggestions and also remind you of the formal comment period deadline of this Friday at just a few minutes before midnight. The Secretary of State's system doesn't allow us to enter midnight as a function, so they're in 5-minute increments. So please don't comment at 11:57 on that evening. It has happened, so the earlier the better on that day. And then the rest of today we'll just kind of recap the rules. The recommendations from the 2025 charge. We'll talk about some potential adjustments we know we want to make based on comments received, and then have questions and discussion going forward. And I'm gonna hold off on looking at chat until I get to when Amanda speaks, and then I'll dive in there. Otherwise, we'll never get going. I want to thank the 2025 Rulemaking Advisory Committee members. This is largely a carryover from the 2024 process, but couldn't have come this far without this group. As you'll hear, these roles were initiated at the request of tribal governments in Oregon. Several tribal governments were privileged to have had the collaboration of the State Historic Preservation Office, as well as the Legislative Commission on Indian Services, a number of local governments, folks who represent property owners, developers, and also the land use advocacy organization kind of perspective in the Department of Transportation. So if I didn't mention the representatives of 8 of the 9 tribes, that's my bad. The Burn Springs, Burns Paiute tribe was not able to mount participation on the rulemaking effort, but we have been consulting with them off to the side and will continue to. Let's see. So some guiding principles I wanted to underscore. These were actually very early. These we took to commission with the launch in 2023. So these are foundational principles, and I wanted to just emphasize them here. So the goal is to improve awareness of and reduce impacts to culturally important areas and resources around the state. Number 2 and 3 are very important. So I brought this slide back to respect the permitting timelines in Oregon law. So obviously 120 days, 150 days, those aren't changing here. And then also supporting Governor Kotek's housing and homelessness initiative and housing production objective. So trying to do a lot within those, principles, trying to do a both and, with, cultural resource, preservation and improvements while also producing the state's needed housing. So appreciate all the comments that have come in and those that will come in. They mean a lot to us. We're reading them carefully. So on 2024, between 2024 and 2025, so we'll distinguish here. So in 2024, the commission's charge to the department was to use local development permits as a point of contact to inform community members of existing state laws. So that's part of the rules. To require proactive measures to protect archaeological objects and sites as defined by state statute, to define and protect where local governments can, landscape areas of cultural significance, and to provide direction on keeping information confidential. It's very sensitive, obviously, in many cases. So those rules, a suite of rules were adopted by the commission in last December 2024. In March, they asked us to reopen to look at three aspects that really have quite a bit to do with the landscape features of cultural significance. So they are to consider what parties can bring an application, to reconsider how those applications would be processed, and then to better define roles in the case of Metro's urban growth boundary expansion. So that was the 2025 charge. And I'll just go over briefly what those results were in a minute, actually. Wanted to just provide a little bit more rulemaking background, not assuming that everyone on today had been in previous sessions. So I mentioned the tribes requested the rulemaking. We did a survey of local governments in 2022. Thank you very much to everyone who responded. That was really important to understand what information and just sort of a representative sample of what local governments practices were at the time, what information they had and didn't have. We convened at the commission's request a tribal work group in 2023, figure, what get our arms around this rule, and then initiated with commission in Medford at the end of 2023. As I mentioned, the base rules were adopted in 2024, and we've been working on some refinements. Matthew, go ahead and put those resources in the chat now. One of the links that Matthew is going to put in the chat is the Secretary of State's notice. Today we'll be touching on a couple of the sections and section numbers. You'll notice that the entirety of the rule is underlined because it's all a new rule. After Commission adopted the rules in 2024, we had not filed yet, and that until we realized that we might need some more work on the rules. So we never filed the 2024 rules. That's why it's all open for public comment. You don't see just a few red lines. You'll see the whole or underscore. You'll see the whole rule and underscore. There is a compare versions of what was passed in 2024 and what we proposed in 2025 that I can put it in the chat later when Amanda's speaking, if that's easier, because it kind of shows what was adopted in 2024 than what was brought in 2025. It's a part of a rulemaking packet, so I'll indicate a committee packet. So I'll indicate what page number that's on there. From RAC 5, as we lovingly call it, RAC 4, excuse me, fourth meeting this year. So just a little bit more background and context. I grew up in Oregon, so sometimes I feel like I've been here a long time, but I realize that others have been here very long time before, and that was not always taught in school. It certainly wasn't taught in planning school. So we're having a lot kind of renewal of attention to things that we should have been attending to before. So we know that tribes have been here in their words since time immemorial. That's at least known archaeological record of 18,000 years. That information is changing all the time. So if that number seems higher than you recall, it does keep going up as archaeology keeps improving. Senate Bill 100, obviously the foundation of Oregon's modern land use planning system. And the original comprehensive plans were developed during a period of termination of tribes in Oregon. So during some of our lifetimes, there was an act of Congress in 1954 which terminated 61 tribes in Oregon I think it was 1953, there was also the Klamath Tribes Termination Act, which are both all those were very traumatic from what I understand. Meanwhile, then, as some of the nations and the confederations of tribes were working back towards restoration, cities and counties and planners and community members were developing comprehensive plans. So inventories under Goal 5 were initial inventories were developed during that time. And there was actually only 3 tribes recognized at that time with whom to consult. There would have been the 2 treaty tribes in the Columbia River area, Warm Springs and Umatilla, and then also the Burns Paiute tribe were recognized for the first time in 1964. So we know that we're dealing with an inadequate factual base here, unfortunately, as planners. So again, just ask that we all do our best to try and learn along together now that we know better, know more, we can do better. That during that time, there was, for the last 30 years, since the mid-90s, there's been no specific Division 23 rules implementing cultural areas. Any questions on that portion? And I would ask folks to perhaps raise hand if you do, so I don't I don't dive into fall in the chat. Any questions on that kind of history or corrections? In the spirit of always learning, I easily take a correction on anything I've presented. Okay. I'm not seeing hands, but someone just shout out if I've missed someone. All right. Let's see. So I think nope. There's a little bit more, and then I'm gonna turn to Amanda. Yep, structure of the rule and then responses to 2025. So Amanda, if we could go into the structure of the rule now, I think Matthew's probably put it in the chat. That would be great. Thanks.
All right. So as Kirsten mentioned, this is what we're proposing is a resource category specific rule for cultural areas. So currently, the old division that dealt with Goal 5, Division 16, covers cultural areas, but there's nothing specific in there about how to apply Goal 5 to cultural areas. So this rule would bring cultural areas up to the same, alongside all the other area specific rules we have, and have one for cultural areas. So organization here, so definitions, because the Goal 5 process works first from an inventory and then moves to protection measures, the rule is organized that way. So we define cultural areas to include both archaeological sites and cultural landscape features. So Section 3 talks about archaeological sites in an inventory, through an inventory lens, and then Section 4 talks about cultural landscape features through an inventory lens, and then we move to Section 4 and 6, which talks about these two types of cultural areas in what it means to protect them under this rule. And yeah, I'm just like, so the word protect, I will say that the word protect, particularly for archaeological sites, is really more about improving communication between local governments and tribes and applicants, applicants who are looking to develop land, to better inform people of the existing state archaeological laws and have them control if an archaeological site ends up, or if a development ends up being in a place where there's an archaeological site. So then after that, we have a section specific to urban growth boundary amendments, and this is a change from the rule in 2024 because we realized that we had just kind of glommed a whole bunch of stuff together, and we really needed to separate out what the expectations were when a city was expanding the urban growth boundary, or when Metro is expanding the urban growth boundary. So that happens in Section 7. Section 8 is, because the rule does not require local governments to do inventories of significant landscape features. Section 8 is basically another notice requirement in order to improve communication between local governments, tribes, and applicants to have awareness of landscape features that are important to tribes and potentially make recommendations for how a development could be adjusted in order to have less impact on an important landscape feature. Section 9 talks about some optional or additional protection strategies that a local government might choose to take on. And then 10 is some specifics about kind of timing of, maybe not timing of the application of the rule, because I guess that's happening with when we file with Secretary of State, but some other things about how to apply the rule.
Thank you, thank you. I was going to try and share the compare version. Oh, those are good. Now I'm seeing the chat. I was going to try and share the rack 4 packet in the chat, but I think I'm going to have to ask Jess to help with that, Jess or Matthew. And then on the cover memo to rack 4, it says what page the compare version is on, if folks are curious about that. But it may be just easier to read the full rule, but sometimes I like a good old Word document where you can see like what's new, what's old. But truly, even in the compare versions document, that's all new. The red line and strikeout is the change between 2024 and 2025. So that's too much under the hood, then you can just ignore all that. Thanks, Vanda. So responses to the 2025 charge, I mentioned there was 3 areas. And want to again thank the Rulemaking Advisory Committee members for considering these pretty thoroughly. So in the 2024 rules, federally recognized tribes in Oregon, which there are 9, and other culturally identified groups, and that was the term, would have been able to bring an application for consideration for a local comprehensive plan, inventory, and or protection measures to a local government, and the local government would need to receive that application and process it. It doesn't determine the outcome, but it does say that yes, these are meritorious, we want to take these seriously, and the local government would consider it. In the 2025 draft, due to concerns of groups actually using this rule to block needed housing development and or other mischief, the Rulemaking Advisory Committee and the department have recommended that that pathway be restricted to Oregon-based governments, which include federally recognized tribes and also metro regional government. The other entities, other culturally identified groups, terminated tribes in Oregon, tribes in other states, and or other culturally identified groups may still petition a local government to initiate that plan amendment. So that was the resolution on that topic. On processing an application, I'll take credit or blame myself. I've always thought that these would be legislative amendments dealing with the community's entirety of their comprehensive plan inventory. However, we are reminded that because of a particular court case, Strawberry Hill Four-Wheelers versus Benton County Board, sets a strong legal precedent. It was a Supreme Court case that defines when something should be processed as a legislative versus quasi-judicial amendment. And so it is possible that a request to process or consider an amendment for a landscape feature of cultural significance could apply just to one property or affect just a few property owners, a few properties, in which case the community's legal counsel might or their own regs might require it to be processed as quasi-judicial. So we didn't come back and say that the local government shall consider these as legislative amendments. It will depend on the nature of the application. And if anyone has questions on that, I'm very glad that Gordon is with us today. And for metro urban growth boundary amendments, the draft rule, actually in looking into this, I want to credit Laura Kelly, who's at another appointment. She will probably join us later, but she and she's our regional representative for the Portland Metro region, one of 2. but specifically is the liaison with Metro. She and Amanda actually developed a new section 7 that is urban growth boundary amendments in total. We had sort of procedures around UGB amendments in several different parts of the rule in 2024. So in 2025, they're all one section, new section 7, which clarifies that Metro would send notice to tribes who wish to be noticed of a proposed UGB amendment, and that cities within Metro would continue coordination to apply Goal 5 when the culturally important landscape feature is noted on the record of the UGB expansion. So basically, very kindred to what happened most recently up in Metro with the Sherwood concept plan. Metro conditioned that the city of Sherwood would continue to consult with interested tribes on that concept planning initiative. I feel like I want to mention here, because I'm not sure I'll have a cue later. Which tribes is a very common and natural question. So the Legislative Commission on Indian Services will be in consultation with the tribes. Oh, there is a cue. Let me just see if it's coming right up. Okay, well, the Legislative Commission on Indian Services will hold the list of each city and county with whom they should send notice, for whom they should send notice. So that will be updated annually. And it's one of the reasons, there are several, but it's one of the reasons to set off the effective date of the rule to January 1, 2027, is to do that consultation. For these rules, the notice is voluntary for tribes, so they may opt out of notice. Different nations in Oregon have different capacities. So in this period of consultation with tribes, they'll be identifying from which local governments they'd like to receive notice, if at all, of ground disturbing activities or urban growth boundary amendments or other notices required in the rule and the draft rule. So just some key dates. Hit this one. Consultation and public comment is through the end of this week. It's an exciting moment for us because then we'll really be working through what folks had to say. We've already been reading and posting them, and I'll get to that in a moment. It is set for commission deliberation and possible adoption again. For some reason, these are the exact 2 dates of 2024. But it is scheduled right now. The item is scheduled for December 5th. The commission held a public hearing in September at their meeting in Klamath Falls, and we're grateful for Chairman Ray coming over and providing some comments and guidance for the commission at that meeting. And then the effective date would be, as I mentioned, January 1, 2027. So please do send in any comments. They don't have to be perfect. If you would let us know something, just let us know something. We really appreciate it. So I wanted to just share where the comments are being posted. This was a screenshot as of a couple weeks ago. We're posting comments received associated with the hearing date, which was September 25th. So on the commission's website there, you can go to meetings, September 25, and you should see your comments there. Ones received today may not be kind of up online yet, but we've been already pouring over them. So thank you for submitting them. So preparing for implementation, on the left-hand side, so we're wanting to do really everything humanly possible to make this as easy as possible for local governments to implement should these rules pass. Again, want to thank regional representatives Brett Estes from the North Coast, Laura Kelly from the metro area, Don Hurt from Eastern Oregon, and also those are our 3 main folks, and honestly the whole suite of regional representatives, but those 3 regional representatives have been working with Amanda to develop templates for local governments, both information that would be shared with community members when they come to the counter for a permit for ground disturbing activities that require public notice, model language for notice procedures. We'll be supporting the Legislative Commission on Indian Services for those to cohere that list of tribes that wish to be noticed and for which area. Be preparing guidance for local government, and tribal communication and coordination. On the local government side, so again, one of the reasons for the year off of implementation is to is to prepare notice requirements and processes, to modify application forms through the course of those months, and to prepare sort of emotionally, mentally to integrate responses and including recommendations and permits, to prepare to receive applications to recognize a culturally specific landscape feature on a local comprehensive plan inventory. We have no idea of knowing how, if and how many tribes would come forth with that application in this next biennium, this 2-year period. So just do let us know if you receive one. We want to be here to help. Certainly your regional representatives, but Amanda Gordon and me will all be very interested to support local governments in any way possible through that process. The tribes would be responding during this period to the invitation to define areas of interest. And then if you haven't seen the Legislative Commission on Indian Services website, please Google it. It'll be all over our guidance materials, but they are an invaluable source of information. They have a page on each of the 9 tribes that they maintain contact information for as the best they can. Tribes obviously also have their own websites, sort of a one-stop shop for the 9 tribes in Oregon, and also guidance on inadvertent discovery that we'll be cross-linking to. There's some videos there on consultation for every nation. I would encourage folks to watch for your area, but really an invaluable resources, and only 3 staff. State physical anthropologist, Dr. Alyssa Bullion, has been serving with us on the RAC for 2 years, and just want to thank her in absentia. So comments and next steps, again, please comment. Email are fine. You can use the comment form. That's also encouraged, or simply send us an email, or a letter PDF. Whatever we receive that's a formal comment, we'll be posting on the website though, so do be prepared for that, or say this is just a note to staff. It's not formal for the record. We're posting everything so folks can see other folks' comments. And today's our closing webinar. If there's any help we can provide in the next 2 days, please let us know. If there's if you would like a presentation to your staff or just a quick meeting as you prepare comments, let us know if you're going to prepare comments. So back to Amanda. We wanted to talk about some potential adjustments of where we kind of know we want to fix and adjust some things in the rules. Interestingly, these are not associated with the 2025 charge. So just a note here that by doing, we're learning. So also, if the commission passes rules in December, commission always wants us back to fix anything or to reconsider something. So as we begin or getting ready for implementation, I would not be surprised at all if we are back to commission for adjustment to the rules. So please don't think this is the end. Amanda, would you like to take up this slide?
Certainly.
Yeah.
All right, so we're starting from the top, top of the rule. So section 1 of the rule, which is definitions, and here is just I don't want to dishonor it by calling a nuance, but right now the definition of a cultural area is an archaeological site, a landscape feature of cultural importance, and a place where both are present. So we know that there are areas in the state where both are present, and that was kind of an important thing to raise for some of our tribal representatives. And then since then, we've had a city representative recognize that could add some complication as to how someone reads the rule. So the rule really just has directions for archaeological sites and then separate directions for landscape features. And it doesn't have directions for where both are present, but just, so that's why right now we've decided just to remove that where both are present from the definition of a cultural area, but in our guidance, make sure that we emphasize that archaeological sites can exist anywhere, and a place where that was a culturally important location probably does have archaeology associated with it. So another thing that we've been kind I don't know, I'm going to say struggling with. So this rule is, like I said earlier, is supposed to help support application of existing archaeological laws and permit requirements. Permit is required for disturbing an archaeological site, whether it's significant by the SHPO or statutory definition of what's a significant site, or not. And then meanwhile, goal 5, if people who are familiar with goal 5, we like to divide things into significant resources and non-significant resources and protect the significant resources. That just ends up being problematic for archaeological sites. So we are trying to clarify what's going on here with archaeological sites. And the bottom line is that the rule treats all archaeological sites the same, and we just need to explain that well. This third item here, so folks, I'm sure folks on this call, some people know I saw some historical resource people on the call. Statute requires property owner consent when you're talking about a historic resource. Cultural resources can also be historic resources, but the reason why they're being protected under this rule, we assume, and here we're talking about landscape features, not archaeological sites, because that's what the rule brings, is the ability for a local government to add protections for a landscape feature of cultural significance. So it was just, there'd been comments earlier about not ignoring the owner consent rule for historic resources, and knowing that a site can be historic and cultural. We're just trying to clarify how that works. And I think we've settled on a better way of doing that. So then reflect the legislative adjustments to limited land use decisions. So here is where you'll see in the rule, particularly the rule for I guess it is the rule for protecting or the section of the rule that protects archaeological sites. It lists the kind of land use permits that will require notice, and things have been changing in statute with regard to limited land use decisions. And so we are going to better clarify when a notice might be required as part of somebody receiving an application for a that would be a limited land use decision, because not all limited land use decisions require notice anymore. Then this last one, when we started this rule, SHPO staff was very interested in being strong partners with us. They've been wonderful partners in developing the rule. But we also know that their staffing is tight, and that problem isn't going to be solved anytime soon. So we've worked to change statements in the rule to not basically require any action by SHPO in order for a local government to move forward with something. And so we're still refining one particular area where SHPO was mentioned, and how to how to direct local governments in that situation. And then this last one here, because I think Kirsten, it's been through like webinars, meetings like this. There have been people who are just curious about how this rule overlaps with the National Scenic Area statutes and rules. And just like all of our goals, the scenic area stuff basically take the place of county, what the county does in the National Scenic Areas. So whether we need to call that out in this rule, or whether we just talk about it in guidance, we just want to make that clear.
Thanks, Amanda. If it looks like I was cracking up during your speaking time there, it's because reading the chat. And I just want to say thank you to everyone for putting your loves and hates in there. I have a few kindred souls that just acknowledge the darkness coming, but another reminder to actually bake. Thank you, Scott Siegel. Great time for baking. And also thank you for the reminder for folks that we actually fall back and that change is coming. But I also just love that the winter is coming part. I call it spring. So to me, once we hit December 21st, that's like spring. But thank you all for that. Those were great. Um, Folks should feel free to continue to add. I don't think we have much more formal remarks, everyone. I might just stop share and just see faces. And we have panelists and others. I think we have Zoom is strange. We organized this as a webinar so that we didn't have any Zoom bombers. We have had that too in our rulemaking advisory committee processes. So sorry for everyone that had to experience that. So this breaks us up into panelists and attendees, which I think makes it that you can't, if you're an attendee, you can't turn on your video. But if you would like to say something and wouldn't mind coming on and being on camera, please feel free and raise your hand. Does anyone have any questions at this time? Teresa, please, yeah.
Hey, I have one about one of my staff and I were talking before this about the fact that we do have policies in our plan that talk about cultural resources, and it obviously doesn't reflect this. Would the expectation be that we work on amending that over the next year as well? And that's not something that we had anticipated. So
Yeah, thank you, Teresa. I want to restart your heartbeats there, and it's not expected. So thank you for the question. A comprehensive, plan, chapter, or section is a major undertaking, and that is not expected here. That's why trying to kind of thread these rules in a way that increase communication, allow for development to continue, and recognize that there was people here before 1970. So it's not necessary to go back and redo what you have done. Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for the question, Teresa.
yeah, it's just that we have some various policies and such that'll be different from what we'll do here. So and we have people watching what we do, and if we don't do what our plan says, they'll be trying to get us for that. So
Sure.
just so you know that.
Sure. And Teresa, if it's okay, I'd love to work with Laura to follow up with you.
Sure.
Because that makes me nervous. Because we don't want gotchas here, So if you can possibly shoot us a note or section in the next day or two, I'd love to see those. It just, I'm aware of the looming deadline, which we have to go dark and we can't talk to anyone anymore after the 31st. So if you're able to share that with us this week, I'd be grateful, because it'll be illuminating. And Laura's not quite on this call yet. She'll be on around 2, but if you could, that would be really helpful.
Sure. And Laura.
Laura
Kelly. Okay.
Yeah, that's my colleague here with Washington County. I would for your region, I would loop her in, but you can certainly just send it to me or Amanda Gordon.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Can I just want to follow up a little bit on Kirsten, your response. Hi, Teresa.
Hi, Amanda.
You might want to, if you haven't already, look at section 9, which is the optional and additional local protection strategies. So section 9 of the rule, because there it clearly says that, whatever your program was, at least regarding archaeological sites, will be consistent. Whatever it was before this rule was adopted is still consistent with the rule. So hopefully that works to alleviate your concern. But if not, let's hear about it.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, thank you. Anybody else? We could hear from Coos County.
Monica
Jill.
has Monica Sather.
Oh,
has
Monica, I'm so sorry. Please go ahead. Thank you. Thanks, Amanda.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I tried to get questions to DLCD as soon as I could. Unfortunately, it wasn't until Monday. So I think I'm going to hold a lot, but I think the burning one right now I'd just love to talk about is if there's any guidance coming or if you could clarify now about what a petition to a local government would look like. I'm not familiar with what a petitioning to add a site would be. And then some just voicing, I think, interest in helping us explain those parameters of who that could be. So it sounded like today that definition or explanation, an example of a tribe who has been terminated, or what the entity could be, with interest in us helping people understand it can't just be someone's neighbor out of the blue. Going back though, the petition part was very interesting to me. Could you explain more about what you envision with that?
Monica, thank you. I'm just looking for the chat because I'm just curious. You don't have to answer, but do you mind if I know your community name?
I'm sorry, gosh, City of Springfield. Thank you.
Springfield, thank you. And I should know that. I apologize. Thank you. It's an application, and I probably misspoke and said petition, Monica, so it would be an application for consideration, and Amanda is here to help with that. I would say that in these rules, it is only the 9 currently federally recognized tribes. But in terms of the application, maybe we could turn to that portion of the published rule, Amanda, which would be section 8, I believe.
So I think, and correct me if I didn't hear you right, Monica, I think you were making the distinction between those entities that can apply and those entities that would petition their local government to take up an amendment on their own. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay.
Just not seeing an explanation in the rules of if someone were to petition, what would that look like? Will we have to update our procedures for that opportunity? Or would that be an offline conversation? Yeah.
So the idea is that an application would basically force the hand of a local government to start the Goal 5 process. So start the inventory process and then continue with what falls out from there. But the petitioning, or basically requesting, is getting on the agenda of your city or county. I guess maybe start with the planning commission. I don't know how it works, or maybe it's a city or county commission, and saying, hey, this is an important thing for me or for us, and we would like the city or county to initiate on their own a Goal 5 process to recognize a particular site.
Thank you. If you could see me, I'm nodding my head, and
Okay.
that's really helpful, because I just envision if community becomes interested in this, or I don't know, that maybe we would get the first application. That's one way interest grows. Just being able to explain accurately, thoughtfully, and kindly to people like how to go about that would matter. So that's helpful to us. That you're not expecting a separate application form, or that we'd have to amend code to allow a petition process necessarily. Just more in conversation, hey, this is what you might do, is what it's sounding like.
Yeah. And within that, I think you also raise the issue of, could it be anybody? And this is something that it is very difficult. Culture is a very broad term, and other culturally identified groups is a very broad universe, right? Because there's all kinds of things that knit us together through our culture. And so that is the interest of, I'll say LCDC, because we brought this issue up with them a couple times, was to be inclusive, right? So that was the idea, to be inclusive, and it was hard to figure out how to write a definition for cultural or cultural group that was more narrow while still counting. I don't know, it's just a difficult thing to do. So we are stuck with where we are, and that a culturally identified group could be all kinds of groups of people that do things and experience the world in a similar way.
Great, thank you. And Monica, I see now where you picked up petition, because we shared it in this slide. So one could also just read that as request. Yeah, but no formal process is needed there. Thank you very much for the question.
Thank you.
Yeah. I saw Scott. Um,
Yeah, hi,
Siegel,
Kristen.
please.
Yeah, hi, Scott Siegel.
Hey.
So, yeah, thank you for doing this. I've just started reading through the draft rules, and if I'm understanding it correctly, local governments determine, when something is significant going through an evaluation of the resource. But tribes are, of course, the subject matter experts, and the rules say that too. So without getting into the sort of the circular problem with that, is there any thought or any strategy at the department to put together a budget proposal so that when these rules do become effective, if I understood that 2027, that there would be support for local governments or landowners or perhaps even the tribes to do um, a proper evaluation of a landscape or a site?
Thank you, Scott. Um, Resourcing this does loom large on our minds, so I appreciate you bringing it up today. Um, there will be a time early in 2026, if the past is an indication of the future, that agencies are able to invite comments about policy option packages, which include requests for funding for the legislature. Um, I'd love to take your comment just now as a recommendation.
It
That we're here.
is.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Um, um, yes, I can't say we've cohered or have permission to even publicize an announcement about that, but thank you for the comment. We know this all takes time. Planning takes time, and planning staffs are already full. So, um, um, fitting this in, it would be is difficult. So I get that. The local governments are able to, of course, Scott and I'd be curious about Lake Oswego. Local governments are able to charge a fee for applications. I recall one of the first ones we noticed was Lane County's. If anyone's from Lane County on, please correct me, but I think I recall from Patrick, that who's on today, Wingard on our team, is that for legislative amendment, that fee is quite high. So I think it's the highest one I've heard of. It's 25,000. And I suspect that's meant to help cover costs. One of the things I know that we aspire to do is create some guidance and knowledge sharing around what other communities are doing and setting fees for that consideration. So that's another route. Scott, I would say for local governments, tribes don't have that same ability. We have heard from tribes that it is, at least from one nation, that they don't favor having to pay an application fee to recognize something that should have always been recognized. So there's there, resource needs along the spectrum there. But
Okay,
Scott,
well,
go ahead, please.
thank you.
Yeah.
Since I have the floor,
Yes.
I'm not with Lake Oswego. I'm with
Oh, sorry,
Newburgh,
Newburgh.
but that's all right.
Apologize.
That's all
I'm so
right.
sorry. Yeah.
The question's
Yeah.
relevant to all of
Yeah.
us. So,
Yes.
and I appreciate that tribes wouldn't, nor should they have to pay fees to evaluate lands that they believe are within their purview. But legislative applications, typically they're comprehensive plan amendments or urban growth boundary expansions or other zoning changes that cities initiate, and so or local governments initiate. And local governments typically don't charge themselves a fee, or
Right.
if there's any cost recovery on that, it's coming out of one department and going into another. So that's sort of the background for my question or my recommendation around funding. And I would also just finally, one other thought on this. You might, if you haven't already, take a look at the resources and expertise that's available in the consulting community, regionally or locally, to do this work, and do some forecasting on how much work there might be and whether we have adequate consultant support to do that. So it's just a large potential workload for a lot of people. So it's something else to think about on the operations side. Thanks.
Thank you. And it's true that Newburgh may be the same, that it's local government initiated only. On legislative, there are communities throughout Oregon. I mentioned Lane County, but Oregon City come to mind. Other communities, we haven't done a full survey or inventory of which governments now allow a community member to bring an application. But I take your point that this would be a change for those that don't yet do it and may want to consider a fee too. But that I just went further than your comments said, but we'll put out some guidance about that as well, because it's an important matter of how to kind of how to pay for this work. So thank you, Scott. Thank you. Can we hear from Lori and then Teresa?
Hello, yes, Lori Joseph from City of Scappoose. Sorry if I'm having you repeat, but just so I'm super clear, did you say that local governments are not required to inventory archaeological sites and landscape areas either, unless a petition or request is brought forward from the tribe?
That's correct.
Okay.
So with everything, there's nuance here, Lori. But this is not like, please update your inventory for goal 5. That's not this rule, but we would have to have a very large wheelbarrow of funds to be requiring 36 counties and hundreds of cities to update inventories. You know what I mean? That's a very expensive proposition. And unfortunately, with the changes, the downward changes in periodic review of comprehensive plans over the decades, there's not a regular way to inhabit to be updating inventory. So there's no requirement here for that. Amanda mentioned in earlier in the slideshow, kind of we're trying to find that crosswalk, the right crosswalk between archaeological features and a local inventory. A previous version of the rule, you could find this in the compare version, that a previous version of the rule, what was adopted in 2024 under 3A had said all archaeological sites are significant Goal 5 resources. We think that was probably potentially problematic because of the lack of discoverability in a covered, if you will, a protected archaeological site. So we're trying to find the right way, but it still, even as we crosswalk that to the state's archaeological database of ORA, it is not expected that a local government update their inventory for archaeological sites.
Or, yeah,
Well,
correct. Nor would you really be able to for the, privacy factor, I would assume.
exactly.
Okay.
Exactly right.
I
So
have a
hopefully
little,
that answer your question.
I have a little bit more to add.
Hey,
So that's all. I think we were pretty clear about archaeological sites. It's probably actually even not a good idea to have local inventories of archaeological sites because of the confidentiality of them. But back to the landscape features of cultural significance, and yes, the rule does not require a jurisdiction-wide inventory, and yes, the requirement to process an application is in the rule. There's one other way that a local government would have to initiate a Goal 5 process for a landscape feature, and that is something that's basically not even a carryover. It just exists within the full division of Division 23 that has the rules for Goal 5 implementation. So when an urban growth boundary is expanded, that's another time when, if there's information in the record about a Goal 5 resource site, then a local government needs to apply. It says apply Goal 5 to that resource site. In this case, applying Goal 5 to a landscape feature would be, figuring out if it was significant and then continuing with the Goal 5 process if it was determined to be significant. So I just wanted to make sure that that was also recognized, and that is discussed in section 8 of the rule that talks about urban growth boundary expansions.
7, new 7.
Oh, 7,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah. Lori, does that all make sense? Any further clarification?
Yeah, that makes sense. We are looking at a UGB expansion in 2026, but I assume if this is not implemented until January 1, 2027, we don't have any currently identified in the record culturally significant landscape areas in that UGB expansion area, then we would be fine to not address that at this point.
Right, so
Certainly at this
go ahead, Amanda.
point,
Yeah.
so I want to make a distinction between all the work that goes up to deciding where the UGB is going to be expanded and the actual amendment to adopt that UGB expansion. It's that point. It's the plan amendment that adopts the expansion where there's opportunity for public comment, and if public comment at that time says basically the way the rule reads is there's factual information entered into the record of the plan amendment that a Goal 5 resource site exists. So, you'll find that out when you get to that point, and then the question of whether it would matter because this rule wasn't in effect yet. That is a provision that exists already within the
gotcha.
Division
Okay.
23, and but Division 23 doesn't have a definition for Goal 5 cultural areas, but we know they are a Goal 5 resource that is listed in Goal 5. So a little bit unknown, but it really is no different than how things are right now, how things are supposed to work.
Okay, thank you. And if I have questions further, I can talk with Laura Kelly, our rep.
Yes. Yeah, Lori, that would be great. And a number of communities are looking at UGB expansions now also for needed housing. So it's a very real topic. If anyone, you can reach out today to Legislative Commission on Indian Services. If you wish to find out which tribes would like to receive notice for your area, you can voluntarily. I would definitely say early and often is better than later, but that's optional, Lori, but that's a resource if you'd like it. But here to help. We this is a yes and UGB expansions and hopefully more inclusive ways of doing business. So thank you. Thanks for the question. Teresa and then Scott.
Thanks. I was just going to follow on Scott's question, or in that sort of vein. The question I had was who pays, because it seems like there's two ways to go about this. I mean, a tribe or another government might ask us to add a resource to the inventory, but then you might also come up with something through a development review. And then if we do need to amend our inventory, then you're going through an EC process, and that's having just gone through that can be quite the process. And for a cultural resource site, it probably is pretty specific on how you do that, and we don't have the expertise. And we do have a way to add legislative changes to our work program, but it is by our board directing us through our biennial work program to add it. But then it kind of becomes an unfunded mandate because there's no money for us to do it. So concerned with that and workload, since there are so many other things we're being required to do. Not sure how we could add another thing.
Right. Teresa, thank you. And I know Amanda will have a kind of a substantive response, but if you are able to make a comment on the record, I spoke with your colleague earlier this week, late last week. So if you're able to make a comment on the record, that would be great. Certainly we've heard the concern here, but I think for the official record, if you'd like to weigh in on that, I think that's the invitation here.
Great.
Sorry. Yeah, thank you. And then Amanda.
Yeah, so Teresa, you mentioned information. I think what you said was information that comes to light during a development review. Did I hear that correctly?
Well, I thought that would be the case if we're providing notice to the tribes of development applications, that they would then potentially identify a cultural resource through that process.
Okay.
And I don't know if that meant that then we would need to put that resource on an inventory, or if we just talk about mitigation during that process, or how that exactly would work.
The latter. So
Okay.
anything that comes as a result of information received in response to a notice for a development application, the outcome would, if anything happens at all, the outcome is recommendations to the developer and property owner. There's one, and that is because well, for archaeological sites, we're treating them all the same, and we're just having information shared about how to avoid archaeological sites, or if needed, obtain a permit from SHPO for alteration of that site. And then for landscape features, that's in a section that's talked about as, I think the title of it is potentially significant landscape features. So essentially they're not. And so they're not protected under the local code when the development permit comes in. So the result again is recommendations to an applicant, not requirements.
And therefore not needing to be placed on the inventory, just in that case, Amanda.
Correct, right. That does not, the idea of the communication between the local government and tribes and the developer is not about amending an inventory or a local code in conjunction with a permit application, because that it really can't happen. It's like there's no time. It's just that's not what this rule is trying to do.
Is there anything further there in response to our attempts at clarification? We've gotten called away for a call. I've got, but thank you. That's an important question. So I opt to write a letter, an official comment, which I appreciate, but that's an important clarification there. I might, follow up with her later, just to make sure she knows that those responses are not expected to be drawn into local government's inventory. That would definitely slow things down, and that's not our intent. Suzanne and then Scott, please.
Yeah, hi, this is Suzanne Defner with the City of Monmouth. Thank you for this helpful explanation. I just had a question. Wondering the thoughts behind the definition of an Oregon-based government. I see that it's local, state, or tribal government. Yeah, I didn't hear much on the thoughts behind the state being able to submit one of these applications. Like, is that any state agency, any property? Like, maybe you can just walk me through like how you envision that would work, and if there's any criteria that the state would use to submit an application for that.
That not a lot of thought there, Suzanne. Honestly, it was a way to define tribal governments in Oregon, as well as metro regional government. SHPO, Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife. We haven't heard from any of the other state agencies. Oregon Department of Transportation serves on the Rulemaking Advisory Committee. We haven't heard from any other state agency that they attend to. That's not been a push here. That wasn't the reason for it, Suzanne, but it was a handy definition to be able to tag into, if that makes sense.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And if that's too broad, we can come back and revisit. It's our best attempts right now. And Scott.
Oh, thank you. I think the earlier question you answered, it also addressed my question. Thanks.
Oh, you bet. Thank you. Thank you. I say there's experts on this call. I mean it. Thank you for being here. Anything else? There's a couple others. For some reason, my main screen does not show the raised hand. So, Alyssa and then Kathy. Sorry to miss you there.
Hi there, Alyssa Shrums with the City of Albany. So we're talking about all of this in relation to tribal resources, but archaeological sites are defined as generally as an association of artifacts that are greater than 75 years old for Oregon state law. So I'm assuming this all includes historic archaeology as well. So theoretically, everybody's downtowns. Okay.
I hadn't thought about it in that regard, Alyssa, but you're factually accurate. Of course, the definition of an archaeological site. I always chuckle because I'm about to be one pretty soon, but that is true. And his historic site, Amanda, I think is going to turn towards the state's rule on historic resources, also under Goal 5, but these are unique, cultural and historic. So Matt, if you'd like to talk a little bit about the historic rules, that's probably your thought.
What I wanted to say is the reason why the conversation ends up focusing on tribes and communication with tribes is because the rule requires notice to tribes. But if you actually look at the part of the rule that speaks to archaeological sites, we are talking about any and all archaeological sites. We know that's archaeology is kind of like culturally agnostic, is the way I say it. Like we can all leave archaeology behind. But so that's the reason why we end up talking about tribes a lot in the context of archaeology, because of the notice. But any archaeological site would be so one of the things this rule does is it will require all application forms for development that would result in ground disturbing activity to have information about our archaeological rules and what to do in case of inadvertent discovery. And then certainly if information got entered into the record of an amendment, independent of where it came from, tribe or anybody on any site, that would still be treated the same way.
Well, does that make sense? So I know you have expertise in this area.
Yeah, no, I'm not significant expertise, just, enough to be dangerous. I guess I'm just like trying to kind of wrap my head around it as we have all of the cultural impacts, and that's where we're, talking with tribes. But at the same time, we still need to be cognizant of basically how this is going to impact built environments and
Sure,
downtowns. And
of course.
so I'm just trying to think of like with the requirement for potentially like inadvertent discovery plans and things like that, like depending on how big your downtown is or how established your town was 75 years ago, it could be a huge impact.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to appoint you, Alyssa, also to that section 9, right? Section 9 is the one about the optional and additional protection strategies. So you might want to take a look at that, because the parts of the rule that apply directly wouldn't lead to a requirement for a pre-construction survey for potential archaeology. As a requirement, it could lead to a recommendation, but it wouldn't be a requirement. But we know that that is an important strategy that some jurisdictions have used in order to preserve archaeology and also assure that archaeological laws are followed. And so the rule talks about that option and how a city would go about expanding what they already have, adopting a new program completely. In addition to what I mentioned earlier, is that if you already have a program, you just have it. This rule wouldn't affect that at all.
Melissa, if you don't mind, could we hear a little bit more about what's in your mind? Because I think there might be something there to discuss. When you say a huge impact for downtowns, what are you envisioning there? Because I want to make sure that we're clear.
Yeah, so I think when we're talking about this, when you think about it just from like a tribal aspect, it's like depending on how your area was used, there may or may not be a lot of actual sites to be found, especially when you're talking about the depth of soil in certain areas where you're actually like physically impacting a site. So there may not be a huge impact in like actual discoveries because of this, which is, you know, a risk now. Like archaeology laws aren't coming into effect now. This isn't brand new, but the additional sorry, I'm working through my thoughts here. The additional like talking to tribes and stuff would be new.
Sure.
So there's that aspect. And so,
Yeah.
depending on how new your city is and all that, everybody's different. But when you're talking about like 75 years or older, historic, I'm not sure we've talked enough about like what historic sites look like, what are historic artifacts. And so if you are redeveloping your downtown and you are doing new ground disturbing work, theoretically that is closer to the surface and you are more likely to actually be excavating archaeology sites and not knowing about it. That's kind of where I was going, is like because tribal resources are here since time immemorial, or in memoriam, they can be deeper. So you would never actually impact them with development, but historic sites, because of deposition, are closer to the surface. So that's kind of where I'm thinking, is like how many cities have people disturbing archaeology sites that are historic and just don't even know about it.
Yeah, that's for sure. And Alyssa, Thank you. I wish we had Alyssa Bullion or John Pulley here from either LCIS or SHPO, but you're right. A good place to live is a good place to live. Most of our settlements in Oregon are probably on top of village sites, including downtown Portland. So you are right. I think, I wouldn't mind if Amanda, you could mention the sort of the historic rules under goal 5. And as we do outreach and continued dialogue next year, if and as these rules are adopted, or even if not, I think this work is, it's a program, not a project. This is ongoing, just getting better at planning in Oregon. There might be, we might want to do a special session just on cultural resources and historic resources, and because they're both named in goal 5. Amanda, do you have anything to say or add about the historic rule?
Yes,
yeah.
I can do that.
I know
So,
Alyssa knows about it, but just for the others listening, thank you.
so Alyssa, at least, so for the goal 5 historic rule, I think starts off saying that a local government does not have to have a goal 5 historic program, but if they do, this is like some ways of how they need to do things and some ways of how they are recommended to do things. So in order for what you're calling an historic resource to be protected and here in the goal 5 or land use scheme of things, protected means like, well, no, I'm gonna take that back. That a landowner or developer needs to do something in particular with regards to that resource. I think you would have already had to have the site recognized in the local comprehensive plan, or it has to be on the National Register of Historic Places. So otherwise, a feature or an object or part of a site, whether it meets the archaeological definition or is newer, so is historic, the question in the land use realm is what does the property owner developer need to do? And if you're talking about an historic resource, then the local government would have something to say if they had a goal 5 historic resource program adopted and the site was listed on their local inventory, or the site was listed in the National Register of Historic Places.
Sorry, yeah, just to clarify, when I'm saying historic resource, I'm specifically thinking about historic archaeology site, so an association of like 5 or more historic artifacts that meets that definition. Albany has a robust historic district for built structures, but we don't really inventory for subsurface. So that's my distinction.
Okay.
Right. Thank you. And this rule would not require Alyssa, but let's continue to talk. You're I'm glad you bring the expertise that you have to this discussion. I really appreciate it. Thank you. And Kathy, if your hand is still up, it might be getting tired. I don't know if you still would like to chime in.
Well, I was just interested. Thank you. Yes, Kathy Corliss, MIG. I was hoping we could do a little bit of a deeper dive on subsection 5 and the protection, and in particular, kind of the notice requirements and how you foresee that kind of playing out. So just was interested in hearing a little bit more about that.
Sure. So the 3 and 5 are a pair. And you probably have noticed that. Amanda, do you want to add anything here or take anything up? It's a very close relationship with existing state statute for protection of archaeological sites. And Kathy, you probably noticed that due to the chain of ORS shown there. Amanda, can you give a plain language kind of overview of what we anticipate in section 5?
Sure. So there, hey Kathy, there the protection, that's why I stumbled just a little bit ago about like protection isn't always limiting land use. So here we've written a rule where protection means just do these procedure steps in order to improve opportunity for communication and potential avoidance or protection of an archaeological site. So a local government is required to send, well, first I mentioned that there'll be information on applications to just help use that as a point of contact to inform people about the rules and laws on archaeology and what to do in the case of inadvertent discovery. And then for applications that require a public process. So they already require some kind of notice in a public process in a period of time in which a city can process information. For those types of applications, the city will send notice to tribes, and the list of tribes they will send notice to will be given to them by the Legislative Commission on Indian Services. And LCIS will have that list based on what tribes have requested. And so then the rule goes into how to notify the tribe, and we're giving some thought to, in guidance at any rate, to maybe develop like a cover sheet that might go with an application. So when the city or county receives back the application, maybe all the specific information they need to send to the tribe is right there, and they can just send that directly to the tribe. And then this is set up where there's 2 notices required. One is kind of a new expectation for local government. So that is when they receive the notice, within a certain time of, within 7 days of receiving the notice, they need to, or sorry, within 7 days of receiving one of these applications, they need to provide notice to tribes. And then they would provide notice to tribes when they deem the application to be complete, and the tribe would just be kind of included as an interested party for that land use review. The reason for the first notice is just trying to buy more time for the tribes to be able to look at a proposed development and see if they've got any issue at all. So you've got that first notice, and you've got the second notice, and then within the regular review period and deadlines, if a response comes back from the tribe, then that response is put in the record for the application review, and then the city would use that information to make recommendations as appropriate to the property owner and developer for how they might avoid a site, or suggest that they would need to look into getting a permit if there's a high chance of disturbing an archaeological site. Is that the kind of level of walkthrough you were hoping for?
Yeah, thanks, Amanda. That was really helpful. And I guess I just wanted to, that the new requirements for, and I think you touched on this, that not all limited land use decisions are necessarily going to go through the notice requirement, or they're not required to necessarily go through that same process anymore. That was a recent change. And so that notice within 7 days of a receipt is a little bit different. And then also kind of just thinking through how that might work logistically for those applications that are limited land use decisions, but not necessarily following the traditional limited land use decision process that we're all familiar with. So if you had any thoughts on that, I was excited.
So Laura Kelly took kind of like really thought about this, and because we received a comment from city manager from Klamath Falls, I think, pointing out that I think it's a fairly more recent change to limited land use decisions, and they're kind of divided into categories of when notice is required and when is not. And so now that is going to, we have the rule drafted with an edit to reflect that. So basically, if you don't mind me reading it, so it's now, right now, it's N for limited land use decisions for which public notice is required under ORS 197, 195, ORS 197, 797, and Oregon Law 2025, Chapter 330, Section 3. So I don't know what any of those exactly say, but I think that is supposed to capture this distinction that not all limited land use decisions require notice or a public process. And so this rule only intersects with those that do.
Thank you. Yeah, that's super helpful. And I see Kirsten's comment as well. So thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you both. And Joe, thank you to the city for the comment letter. Is super helpful. Laura is on, so I don't know if Laura, if you want to correct or add anything there. But sort of tracking those recent provisions to in statute.
Yeah,
Laura,
I
please,
can.
yeah.
Just to add real quick, the other part that we thought would be helpful to add in is just an additional sentence that basically says, trying to find my notes. It says, this requirement does not apply to ministerial permits or other applications for which no public notice is provided, just to be super clear.
That's great. Thank you. Thank you. And we do have, this might be a great time to hear from Coos County. If Jill is still here and with us. I've lost her picture, so I'm not sure. Jill, there she is. Thank you. So if I could just introduce Jill, November 20th, Teresa. So go ahead and comment on the current rule draft though, Teresa, if you don't mind. The revised draft will go to commission, but it's post public comment. So please go ahead and comment on the current rule draft that's out there. And Teresa, since I know you're back now, I wanted to just mention that I'm not sure if you heard earlier, but if a tribal representative or tribal government would comment on a ground disturbing application and there's sort of a resource flagged, it does not necessarily, it's not expected that then that would become part of your inventory during the 120 or 150 day period. So Teresa, I just want to make sure that you heard that earlier.
Yes, I did.
Yes, okay, thank you.
I
Sorry.
did. Thank you.
Great, okay. And then Jill, so this is my drum roll for Jill. In a very special year, Coos County adopted their first comprehensive plan. Jill, could you tell us a little bit about the program and what and how it's been operating for Coos County? Thank you.
So Coos County is a little bit unique. For those of you that don't have estuary plans, we have two different sets of policies that we follow. One of them is in our estuary plan, which was what started the whole conversation with the tribes. And we were lucky to have strong tribal representatives when we were in our planning phases. So in our Coos Bay and Coquille estuary management plans, we send notice regardless of whether it is a permitted use or any type of conditional use review. And it provides a 30-day comment period. Within those 30 days, we get comments back that tell us more about the site conditions and if there is some areas that need to be protected. Our plan gives us some mitigation suggestions as well. And then we have our plan that's outside of our estuary, which we call our balance of county plan. So it's anything that's not estuary zoned. And that fits more of a goal 5, except we do have still that strong tribal policies where we work with the tribes and send notice. The areas that we're sending notices aren't the entire county, but it's quite a bit of the county that is covered. Any place that's around any kind of water or an area that would have been used for travel, basically, has been identified. And again, we send those notices on everything, regardless of whether it's a hearing or just a permitted use. It is a 30-day turnaround time, which sometimes is a little tight for tribes. Our tribes are very engaged, I will say. And I know Cassandra's going to want me to tell you guys that, Yeah, so she's probably gonna want me to tell
Okay.
you that it doesn't matter whether they respond or not, they do care.
There you
Because
go.
sometimes they are limited in staffing as well. And so we have received comments even afterwards, and we still always put disclaimers on all of our permits that, you know, if you actually come across any kind of artifact that you need to stop digging, you need to contact and just try to provide that education. And who to contact and the information that they need to make sure that they're continuing to protect that resource. So, but as I said, we had strong tribal representation. Don Ivy was very instrumental in working on that plan from Coquille Tribe. And you know, we really have struggled a little bit. I will tell you as lessons learned, we have struggled a little bit with updating inventories because we do have inventory maps that actually do mark sites that we have under like a lock and key type situation. And so over the years, you know, I'm hoping that this will eventually lead to that fix where we don't have the struggle with the inventories as much. And then is Sarah on?
Palmer?
Yeah.
No, yeah.
So Sarah has been great just recently to, I think she's been there a little less than 2 years, with trying to come up with some solutions for us for some mapping. And, you know, we always appreciate that. Everybody's super busy, so I understand it's very time consuming to add on extra duties, but it is very important, so.
Awesome, Jill, thank you. And I want to just acknowledge that, you know, Coos County probably gets a lot of development permits. There may be parts in other areas of the state that get even more. But how quickly do you turn around your notice to tribes, and how do you do that? How's that been going?
So if it's in the estuary, I think it says 3 to 5 days, business days that we have to provide it. The disclaimer I will tell you is sometimes you get plans that aren't very well put together and it's a struggle. And sometimes we have to ask for additional information to make that comment mean something. And so that is probably the biggest struggle, is just trying to get the site plans in place for people to provide those. And we recently took on the on-site septic program. So, you know, it's even more important when they're doing the test holes and stuff to try to provide that education up front. But I think that you know, I'm fairly confident that we do a pretty good job of trying to educate about digging and, you know, what happens if you do come across that resource. And then, I would say that's probably been the biggest challenge. In a normal, if it's a hearing notice, we try to work until we actually have a complete application to send. And when I say complete application, I don't really mean the criteria has been addressed necessarily, but just a complete site plan so that it makes a difference when we're sending it. And so we may send a draft and say, hey, we're requesting additional information. So it just provides a little additional time.
Thank you, Jill. Thank you. Appreciate hearing that experience and how it's sort of a both and in Coos County. So thank you for that. Amanda, please.
I did want to add one more thing. I will
Please.
tell you that a lot of our notices also kind of correspond along with the Department of State Lands notice for wetlands, just because we are in a very wet area. So we're already doing that 30-day notice time frame before we move forward with permitting. So I think that has also helped. It's not just pushing that, you know, we're waiting for one person to comment. There are others that comment too.
Sure. Very good. Thank you. And thanks for the reminder. I know that I recall that Jim on OPN, Mr. Jackson OPN had flagged, you know, the DSL notice processes too. So we're looking at those two to potentially align or as precedent. So thank you. Amanda.
Yeah, Jill, I don't know why I haven't asked you this before, but so you did say, well, so the notice that you send within 3 to 5 days, is that, do you have the ability to have determined that the application is complete? So So might that come 30 days after you receive the notice because it took you that long to determine that the application was complete? Or how does that factor into your timeline?
So for things that are permitted outright, there really isn't a 30-day completeness. So it really just depends on the level. For the items, almost anything in the estuary is going to require a completeness because it's almost always going to require some type of discretionary review. There's just too many policies for it not to. So we still are bound to send it, but we try to say, hey, if there's not enough information, let us know. And then we will try to reach out to get additional information. The tribes are really good also working with property owners. So I've had that happen too. I had a case that was in a place that was a very sensitive area. And I know that Sarah went out and did a site visit and actually talked to the property owners about it too, because I can't guarantee you their plans were the best showing what had happened. And it was kind of an after the fact also. So they'd already started putting some foundation in. So, I mean, I think that, you know, as long as your tribe has that resource, it can be a great resource to rely on. I just, you know, my concern through the whole process is you don't have tribes always that have the staffing to do that kind of thing.
Okay.
We know that for some tribes, they will, sorry, Amanda, if we know for some tribes that they'll opt in or opt out, whether or not they do have the capacity. So that's absolutely understood. Amanda, please, yeah.
Jill, so the applications that are analogous to what the applications for which this rule requires notice are the ones with the
Right.
public process. So you're saying that you do take some time to do a completeness review before you send the notice to the tribe.
Yeah, we try to screen those site plans. As I said, you know, we're not doing a full depth complete review because when we would do that, we would also look to see if there was criteria, if there was anything other stuff that was required in our application process that was missing. But we're mainly focusing on the site plan and looking to see if they've identified where they're doing cuts and fills and where they're doing foundations and stuff like that.
Okay, thank you.
Super helpful. Thank you. Anyone else? I know we have fall out there and you have given us good reasons to be out in it. Alyssa, please.
Sorry, what other kind of question, comment? I'd heard kind of informally that there might be some concerns that because every jurisdiction uses a different type of notice, that this might be a huge learning curve, maybe for the tribes to figure out how to read like our notices and get used to that format. Is there any thought to putting together basically like a submission form like DSL has,
Yeah.
where it's basically like a web page where we turn everything in just to kind of standardize it and make that a smoother transition?
Suggestion, listen, I will just candidly say not yet, but thank you for the suggestion.
Yeah, I had also made that suggestion that if we could make it as easy as possible for both parties, that I think it will go a lot smoother.
Thank you both. Yeah, I know we're planning on guidance, but to stand up a new system, not quite yet, but standard templates, et cetera, yes. But this is sort of the work of the year ahead. If the commission should pass this or a version of these rules, is to provide guidance so that on both sides so that things are, you know, as easy as possible. Because I'm sure that tribes would like to receive like a common subject line or a city, you know, so we might provide some guidance there before we can stand up a full online interface, which is also a good idea. And I'll look at DSL. I was looking at their statute just the other day, Alyssa, but thank you for the flag on their interface. Anybody else? Happy to hang out. Okay, well, I hear that there's crunchy leaves and apples outside, dogs and hunting season coming. But please, we will stay on the line until 3. But if anyone else would like to peel off and redeploy, please feel free. We'll be here. So, but for now, I'll formally sort of end the webinar. And again, thank the League of Oregon Cities, Association of Oregon Counties, and some of our luminary planning directors or community development directors for helping us navigate through at the local level. We will definitely keep folks informed, enterprise. If you signed up for this, we'll send a reminder of how to sign up for the listserv so you'd receive future notices. But thank you all. Teresa, thank you. Alexandra, thank you. You don't have to stay on for the whole time, Alexandra.
I'll probably hop and go take a break from DLCD related rulemaking.
I think it's a good idea.
But thanks so much for hosting this, Kristen. It's been a wonderful resource for our planners.
Alexandra, thank you very much. Please. Eddie, thank you. Angela, if you want to cut out, you'll feel free. I'll pair you up with anyone else who has any questions for Coos County and know that everyone's desk is busy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Talk
Thank you,
later.
everybody. Yes, thank you. Will do. Gordon, even you can redeploy if you want. Amanda and I will hang out. Everyone's desk is so full. Thank you. Just so we don't have a recording with dead air, go ahead and I would say stop the recording, but keep the Zoom